Hey guys, I'm going to go through the vocab you should know for the most dangerous game with you. So we're going to begin with our first word, which is palpable. It means easily noticed or perceptible. When something is palpable, you can touch or handle it. So even though the word is often used to describe things that usually can't be handled or touched, such as emotions or sensations, it's easy to remember it if you think of your heartbeat as being described as palpitations. So that's why I used the image over here as someone checking their heartbeat or their palpitations. Palpable is easily noticed or perceptible. So you probably won't see palpable used to describe, for example, an egg or a doorknob or a motorcycle or something like that. It's usually reserved for situations in which something invisible becomes so intense that it feels as though it has substance or weight. Someone who has experienced a death in the family may say that her grief feels palpable. So I've given you some examples here of ways that it can be used. It is always considered an adjective. So now we're going to move on to our next word. It is indolent. And indolent just means slow or lazy. It is typically an adjective. It can take an indolent teenager hours to get out of bed on a weekend morning. Often it's noon before you come shuffling down to breakfast. But an indolent person is slow and lazy and not the type of person that you'd want running your business or competing with you in a relay during track. Doctors, a lot of times, will use the word indolent to describe medical conditions that are slow to progress over time. So if you're diagnosed with an illness, you'd prefer an indolent one over one that spreads quickly, like an indolent ulcer. You don't want to be recognized as an indolent employee. So I picked a couch potato over here because we don't want to be couch potatoes. We don't want to be indolent or lazy couch potatoes. All right, so our next word is dogged. Dogged is really a word that has an interesting history. Someone who's dogged is considered stubbornly determined or stubbornly persistent. You might remember the old Looney Tunes cartoons where Wile E. Coyote would pursue the Roadrunner. Well, we would call that a dogged persistence. He just will not give up, even if an anvil drops on his head. You can actually see the word dog within the word dogged. And that's not a mistake. If you are dogged, you are as obstinate and tenacious as a dog who's after a bone. One of the earliest definitions of this adjective was actually more general, meaning just simply to having the qualities of a dog. Today, though, if someone describes you as dogged, they simply mean that you won't stop until you get what you want, which is why I included a picture over here of a dog digging up a bone, going after a bone. So our next word is going to be vitality. So if you are full of life or vigorous and energetic, lucky you, but you have vitality, which is really the state of being strong and in great health, having great energy and liveliness. Vitality also just has the general meaning of life force, as in this mysterious power that separates the living from the dead. If you are a fan of zombie movies, that would sound familiar. The phrase vital organs comes from the word vitality, meaning a person's inner organs are, most essential to life. Abstract things can also have vitalities, such as the vitality of the state or the vitality of Broadway theater. The vitality of the seed, the bodybuilder's vitality. Those are some examples that I've given you. So I used a picture over here that kind of just shows someone who exhibits this concept of vitality, great energy and liveliness. The next word is staccato. Staccato is actually a musical term for notes that are played quickly and sharply. They're short and separate. It can also refer really to anything characterized by similar beats, such as staccato clacking of a woman's high heels on a tile floor or staccato applause. There's really nothing quite as pleasant as laying in bed on a Saturday morning and listening to the staccato tapping of rain on the roof with a hot cup of tea in your hand, knowing that everything that you had planned is canceled and you just get to lay in bed that day. Other staccato sounds aren't maybe as pleasant, like my neighbor learning to play the drums or a jackhammer blaring right outside my window as they redo the sidewalks, but you get the idea. I've given some other examples of how staccato is used, and I've used a picture here. Clapping is often considered a staccato sound. Okay, so our next word is vigor. My sister just got a new puppy, and it runs all over the house, jumps on furniture, chews everything in sight, much to her chagrin. Um, but she is not enjoying the new puppy's vigor or sense of energy, this enthusiasm that the puppy has. Um, but aside from, having mental or physical vitality, vigor, a noun, can actually be applied to an imaginative style of thought or expression, and also to a forceful intensity. So, for example, you might hear a sentence like, the jury was not only willing to acquit the defendant, but also nominate him for sainthood by the time his attorney had delivered with vigor an impassioned plea for his client's innocence. So, the way that he performed that closing argument with such passion and intensity made the jury want to acquit him. So the vigor can be energy and enthusiasm, but it can also be a forcefulness and intensity. And so, what better example of vigor than kids? Kids have energy and enthusiasm and a almost physical sense of intensity to them. They are constantly wearing people out. Moving on to the next word, we have lacerate. The verb lacerate just means to cut or tear. So the envelope that gave you a nasty paper cut, it lacerated your finger. Something usually needs to be sharp or jagged to lacerate you, like broken glass or sharp stick. You clearly aren't going to get lacerated anytime soon by lace or cotton balls or cloth, but you could get lacerated from sharp tongued people who are hurling hateful words your way. Snide remarks and personal digs and put downs and things like that can lacerate feelings just as sharply as a knife can cut your finger. So I've given an example here of his lacerating remarks, but it can also be used as an adjective like lacerate leaves, meaning the leaves must have some sort of ripped edging. And then here's a cool drawing I found that someone did on DeviantArt. And you can see those lacerate edges there. Next word is going to be vivid. Vivid's an adjective. It describes a bold and bright color, intensely bold, intensely bright. It can also be an intense feeling or an image in your mind that's so clear you can almost touch it. So this kind of has multiple meanings, but are all similarly related. Sometimes you can have such a vivid dream that it feels so real that even when you wake up, you can't tell if that dream's really over. It was very vivid. So in that dream, maybe there were flowers with deep, rich, vivid colors that look like they were painted. Well, vivid comes from the Latin word vivere, which means to live. And vivid memories really do feel like you were living in them, that you were there. So I've given you a couple of examples here. A bird with vivid plumage, so brightly colored feathers. A vivid description, a description so lifelike and bright that you felt like you were there. And I found this really cool picture of the Sydney Opera House with vivid, bright colors all along the outside. Okay, affable is the next word. Affable means friendly, pleasant, easy to talk to. So an affable host will offer you something to drink, make you feel at home. It's an adjective, and it was entered the English language by way of the Latin word affabilis, which means kind and friendly. So if you're stuck on an airplane next to someone who's affable, the trip's not going to be that bad because the person will be easy to chat to, won't talk your ear off, will recognize when you have your earbuds in, hey, I don't want to talk to anybody. They have those social skills that you are hoping the person next to you has. Synonyms of affable can also refer to pleasant and mild friendliness, such as genial, hospitable, gracious. Affable people generally seem like they're in a good mood and are happy to see you. So if you are an affable person, you probably have an affable smile. Move on to our next word, which is ardent. If you're ardent, you're passionate about something. So a pop star will have many ardent admirers who go crazy at their concerts, so much so that they'll faint from excitement when they enter the stage. Ardent's often used to modify words like supporter, fan, advocate, admirer, defender, but could also modify a word like opponent, an ardent opponent. So although you can either ardently support or ardently oppose something, support is by far the more common use for this word. The word literally means burning or glowing. It's from the Latin ardere, to burn. So in poetic use, the word is sometimes used to mean glowing. Like Alexander Pope did this in a translation of Homer's The Iliad, when he said, "From rank to rank she darts her ardent eyes." So if you look on someone with an ardent look, it usually means glowing with passion. So the examples that I've given over here, an ardent lover, it means a passionate lover, somebody who's looking on their lover with passionate eyes. Ardent revolutionaries, passionate revolutionaries. They're passionate about the what they are trying to overthrow, the cause that they're getting behind. So that is ardent, which is why I picked this picture here. Somebody's boldly standing up for what they believe in. Okay, the next word is condone. If you condone something, you're allowing it to happen, you're approving of it, or you at least can live with it. So in school, you may notice that some teachers condone chewing gum and some don't. Some condone certain parts of the dress code, some do not. Things that are condoned are allowed, even if everyone isn't exactly thrilled about it. People often say, I don't condone what he did, but I understand it. Condoning's like excusing something. People seem to talk more about things they don't condone rather than things that they do condone. So your mom might say, I don't condone you staying up till 10, but I know you need to read for your homework. It's a way of giving approval, but not giving approval at the same time. So what I did here was I put a little thumbs up sign here because, they're technically accepting or allowing or approving, but, they don't sometimes even want to vocalize it. They don't want to say it out loud because they don't really 100% want to put themselves behind it. I've given the example down here. She condoned her husband's occasional infidelities. That would be hard to get 100% behind, wouldn't it? Okay, so the next word is sallow. This is kind of one of the gross words, but sallow just means an unhealthy appearance, often yellow in color, and it's almost always used to describe someone's complexion or their skin color. So, for example, you might say his smile was as engaging as ever, but from his sallow complexion, I knew he was sick. So, you know how sometimes we say that when someone's sick, they turn green? Well, in literature, a lot of times you'll read that their skin will take on a sallow look. And that essentially means the same thing. Sallow just describes the way that someone looks as if they've lost blood or are pale from fever. And the word comes from Germanic roots, meaning dusky or dirty. And I've included a picture here of someone who actually has been diagnosed with jaundice, which is the medical term for sallow skin. You can see the difference between a healthy skin color, which is the hand, and someone who has sallow skin. A couple of examples of this in a sentence. The illness has sallowed her face, which is used as a verb there, but you can also use it as an adjective. The appearance of sallow, colorless skin. All right, let's move on to our next word, which is solicitous. When you hear the word solicitous, think of your mom. Attentive, caring, concerned, or it's nice when your waiter gives you good service, but if he or she is solicitous, the hovering might annoy you. Therefore, I tell you to think of your mom because you'd love it if your mom was hovering over you all the time and actually taking care of you. Um, Solicitous comes from the Latin root solus, meaning entire, and situs, meaning set in motion. If someone is solicitous, they're entirely set in motion caring for you. Your neighbors are solicitous if they try to help your family out all the time. Use this word too if you're eager to do something. So, for example, a good student will be solicitous to appear interested in what the teacher says, even when it's not that interesting. I'll give you a helpful hint for your future, the next 4 years here at school. The more solicitous you appear in class, the more your teacher's going to like you. So I've given an example here of a mom with her student, or with her student, with her son, saying, I'll keep an eye on you, helping him out. Some examples: solicitous parents, solicitous about the future, worried about the future, made solicitous inquiries about our family. Okay, so our next word is venerable. To be venerable is to be admired or respected, and usually because of your status or your age, your wisdom, or your character. The adjective venerable means admired and respected, but it should describe how you feel about old people and bosses, for example. So it describes the wise old man at the top of the mountain who tells you the meaning of life. The noun, the venerable, refers to someone high up in a religion, usually Christian religion. So, for example, Saint Bede, who is sometimes called the father of English history, is often referred to as Bede the Venerable. So, if you're going to use it as the noun, it's a title, but otherwise it's used as the adjective. That just means admired or respected. All right, so the next word is zealous. This is an adjective, and it's used as a way to describe eagerness or enthusiastic activity. You're extremely passionate or enthusiastic to support a person, an object, or cause. If you're too zealous in your efforts, for example, to decorate your house with Christmas lights, you might actually cause a power outage for the whole neighborhood. You're just like over the top, extremely over the top in support of whatever you're doing. Zealous is the adjective for the noun zeal, which means eager partisanship. The latter has a long E, but zealous has the shorter one. It can have a slightly negative connotation. People are sometimes described as overzealous, meaning they try too hard. You'll notice that zealous rhymes with jealous, and actually both derive from the same Greek word, but you don't want to confuse them. A jealous person might be resentful of someone who makes zealous effort to achieve success. So just remember, a zealous person is going to go over the top to be passionate and enthusiastic, to support whatever it is that they're excited about. A jealous person is going to try to tear that zealous person down. All right, so the next word is kind of a fun word. It's pungent. Pungent is used to describe a taste or a smell, and I wrote smell on here because that's how it's used in the story, but it can be used to describe a taste that gives a particularly sharp sensation, almost always bad, but it's sometimes used to describe a sharp sensation. So when you say, what is that pungent odor? It's kind of a polite way of suggesting that someone in the room has BO. The ultimate source for this word pungent is the Latin pungere, which means to prick or sting. So smells like ginger and mustard seed are examples of pungent spices. They smell sharp, if you've ever smelled them. Limburger cheese has the distinction of being the most pungent of all cheeses. And if your pet has an accident in the house, there might be a pungent odor. Pungent can also be used in a figurative sense. Pungent language is stimulating and expressive. It pricks your senses. So you might have pungent satire, sharp satire, very witty. But the most common usage of it really does come back to that sense of smell. The pungent onions overwhelmed the recipe. So just be aware that, yes, it is usually going to refer to a nasty smell, but sometimes it is going to refer to a sense of sharpness. And it may refer to a sharpness in something that's not tangible, not something that you can touch. It may be an idea that is sharp or a concept that is sharp. And our last word is uncanny. If something's uncanny, it's so mysterious and strange or unfamiliar that it seems supernatural. So if you hear strange music echoing in your attic, you might refer to it as positively uncanny. You can also use uncanny to refer to something that's so remarkable that it's beyond what is natural. As in, she has an uncanny ability to find her way around new places. Like you can't explain it. She's never been there before, and yet she can find her way around. That's uncanny. This adjective was formed in English from the prefix un, meaning not, and canny, meaning fortunate and safe. The current meaning of English canny is careful and clever, especially in handling money. You've probably heard of something in popular culture called the uncanny valley. I am not going to discuss it here because I'm running kind of long on time, but I encourage you to Google that if you're interested. It's something kind of strange, which kind of fits with the word uncanny. All right, that is it for vocab you should know for Most Dangerous Game. Make sure you move on to the vocab activity linked with this assignment.